This episode of Spector Creative is brought to you by the front door. When looking to go into a house, choose the front door. Scott Toy Guru Neitlich here. Welcome back to the Spector Creative channel. As the former brand manager for Masters of the Universe at Mattel, I get a lot of questions on this channel in the comments section about my experiences at Mattel and what I do now. Questions like, what my office looks like and how I use it for Spector Creative, or why it is that my family spends Arbor Day with fireworks and explosions. But the most common question that I get in the comments is about my time on MOTU Classics, and specifically, can Classics come back? Can it make a return online, retail, but at the end of the day, on our shelf? Can we get more of figures in this awesome toy line? It had a really good run, and thank you to Grayskull Warrior for this great image. Humanity Collector from 2008 to 2019 produced a lot of figures. It all started off with King Grayskull, which was a Comic-Con exclusive in 2008, with the original plans being that it was going to be a continuation of the 2000X Mike Young series. King Grayskull wasn't meant to be the start of a new brand or a new line look, but rather the continuation of the 2000X line, which was a hit at the time, for collectors, not with retail. But all of that changed when the Four Horsemen showed up at Comic-Con the year before with an awesome new prototype. And one look at this, and it was like, well, all right, let's throw out that idea and focus on this prototype. And that's how Masters of the Universe Classics was born. And it had an unbelievable run with so many figures produced in it. I mean, over 300 figures. It probably has one of the deepest selections outside something like, maybe like Star Wars or G.I. Joe. And it was a re-envisioning of the characters with more deco, more articulation, in scale with modern figures, adding paint-ops where the vintage figures didn't have, like the end of Zodak's gun here was one of my favorite added decos. And the line took off. It was soaring. It was actually, Stratos was really the figure that changed that. Once he sold out, the line really took off. The first few figures sat for a while, and we had to add subscriptions in order to keep up with demand. And eventually we were able to dive really, really deep, doing every figure from the vintage line, doing New Adventures figures, Filmation characters, concept figures. And by the time I left Mattel in 2014, I felt great about the line and where it had been. It was an amazing journey, and I'm so grateful for the time I had on it. It was absolutely a dream come true to have this be, my job, if you will, or, at least what I got to do professionally. And the team that took over after I left did pump out a few more figures, but the line was quickly shuffled over to Super 7, which was a good move because Super 7, as a smaller toy company, is way better positioned to do small collector lines. Mattel is really there to do giant lines like Hot Wheels, Barbie, and Fisher-Price and mass retail. Doing a tiny collector line online is something Super 7 is much, much better at. So I was really glad to hear when it went to Super 7, but I was also saddened a few years later when Mattel took back the license from Super 7, and we only got like 2 or 3 waves of Classics figures from them. But that meant Mattel was going to focus on the brand again, which was a good thing. See, there's a silver lining to every Orco. And they quickly launched new lines at retail, their flagship one at the moment being MOTU Origins, which I must say I'm liking more and more every day. The more I get hands-on with these figures, I totally get them. And the play pattern with these really is nostalgia, the idea that a dad or a mom who grew up with them is now going to play them with their children. And there's not just Origins at market, but there is a whole slew of new form factors coming out with Masters of the Universe. Everything from collector to kid to intermediator between kid and collector. The number of scales and form factors that Masters of the Universe is available in right now is more than it's ever been in the history of the brand, and that includes the vintage era. And this includes 2 new lines that are about to launch later this year. for the two new Netflix shows, the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe show, the CGI show that's aimed at kids, and the Masters of the Universe Revelation show, which is the one being done by Kevin Smith, which is aimed more at the adult collector. And this is the line, or rather this is the show, that the Masterverse line that was revealed at PowerCon last year is going to be linked up with. This slide was shown as what the first wave, the first 8 figures were going to look like in silhouette, and the line being called Masterverse, the evolution of He-Man. A lot of fans jumped that this meant Classics was coming back because these were going to be 6-inch scaled figures. Well, even though the art from Mossman was shown when the figures were finally shown in an investor report a few weeks ago, this is we're now in March 2021 when this is being recorded, the figures were clearly from the new Netflix show, and that you can even see that when you look at the silhouettes. These don't look like Classics figures. They may be in scale. They may be, what they call 7-inch scale. MOTU Classics was 6.5 inches. So the question kind of comes of how many scales, how many different He-Men at the same time can the market take? Can it have the kid CGI, the Revolution figures, and Masters of the Universe Classics? I mean, we all have these giant classic collections. I think this is actually Pixel Dan's collection. When I Googled MOTU Classics collection, his came up pretty quickly, and I hope he doesn't mind me showing images of how great his collection is, because it's pretty darn awesome. And since we're also invested in this collection, the idea of getting another 7-inch collection is cool, but a lot of us really want to just keep Classics going, which is why this question shows up all the time in my comments. And with so many different MOTU SKUs coming to retail, is there room to also do Classics? And can this be part of the Masterverse line, the 6-inch or 7-inch, 6.5-inch? I guess we'll have to see when they finally come out. Can this line support both the Netflix show and support Masters of the Universe Classics and continue it for those of us who are so invested with so many figures? Well, let's look a little precedent in how this could work. So a few years back, when Mattel was wrapping up the DC Universe Classics line, it was rebranded as the Multiverse line. The notable thing about this is all the figures were compatible with DCU Classics. They even used the same tooling and bucks, but they were now all over the place as far as source material. You had classic comic book characters, you had characters from the new live action, and believe me, we only had one live action figure ever shipped with DCU Classics in a Green Lantern wave, and fans were not exactly happy about that. So we kind of stayed away from mixing and matching. Well, since then, mixing and matching has become the norm, and even figures from older movies, older albeit to when this wave shipped, started showing up in the DC Multiverse line. In fact, it wasn't just movies and comic, but even TV show-based or animated-based figures started percolating into the line. So it became a true melting pot of kind of all things DC. It was no longer exclusive to just one style, but all the figures were in scale to each other. They were all in 6-inch scale. The styles would change. Even within a master carton, figures would change. There would be comic book and animated and movie look and live action movie look, all shipping in the same case pack. What mattered was the fact that they were all branded Multiverse and they were all in 6-inch scale. So, with that as precedent, could this be applied to MOTU Classics? And does it mean we could get more obscure characters? So, there's obviously no lack of characters to do still in Classics from the MOTU universe, especially as it continues to expand with new comic books and now 2 new animated series, and not to mention all of those Filmation figures and the vintage comic book figures or characters that could have figures. So is this something we could get? If Classics came back, would we be able to get a focus on all of these, I'll call them C and D list characters that your casual fan may not recognize, but they would make great figures, and they would even make great multi-packs. They could be paired with other characters from the same storyline. There's characters from the 2000X series that we haven't gotten to yet that fans have wanted for years and years. There's even variants of main characters like He-Man and Skeletor from the 2000X series that could be done, that could work in Classics. And obviously, Filmation is a just almost bottomless supply of figures with so many episodes, and almost every episode having some type of guest star in it, whether it was a good guy or a bad guy. And by the way, shout out to Whoosh for all of these images I borrowed from. They had a article that all those came from. Those are just fan mock-ups. So obviously, when you're dealing with D-list characters, and we did them in Classics, but the key was they were all both A, pre-sold as part of a subscription, so we knew that they would sell, meaning we wouldn't have any duds where one figure wouldn't sell. But more importantly, they were all sold online. And this is incredibly important because they bypass the normal retail channel, which is what all of the MOTU figures are currently being sold at. Origins is not available online. Well, I mean, it's available from Amazon and Dorkside and Entertainment Earth, and even Big Bad Toy Store has a Faker figure, but they're not exclusive to online. And as far as character selection, they don't get deeper than a variant of two of the biggest villains, Skeletor and Trapjaw. This 2-pack shows them sort of their current, more well-known version as Keldor and Kronos. So could this work as part of Classics? And the problem is, if a line is at retail, it does need to focus on the main characters. Selling beyond this is very, very, very difficult. The fact that MOTU Classics was online is what let it expand beyond just the core characters. So as much as I would love more classic figures, like Gray, the alternate version of Hero, these type of characters require online distribution. If Classics was to continue as part of Masterverse, which perhaps it could, much like Multiverse had multiple styles, if it was at retail, it's still going to be dependent on selling main characters. Getting all of these sort of third-tier D-list characters in Classics really needs online distribution. So if Classics does come back as part of the Masterverse line, my prediction is it would still focus on main characters. It would not be all of these, Scrollos and Sultra figures that we all really want. And I'm included in that. I mean, I would love a Chef Allen figure. But without Matty Collector and without online distribution, for Classics to go this deep, it's not something I would count on. Did this video help? Did it clarify? I hope so, and please do share with others and let people know, because it tells YouTube to keep sharing, and that's what it's all about, sharing toy love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.